Ed Sullivan exposed 7 music icons whom he privately regarded as truly malevolent. The Ed Sullivan Show delivered to American living rooms the finest musical talents of an era. Every Sunday evening, families assembled around their televisions to enjoy the lineup of performers Sullivan had personally chosen to amuse the country. His endorsement could propel careers to extraordinary heights. Yet beneath Sullivan's well-known rigid posture and clumsy introductions was a sharp evaluator of personality. While millions viewed only the polished onstage acts, Sullivan observed what occurred once the cameras stopped. The authentic behavior of these music stars when they believed no one was observing. Ed operated a family-oriented program, stated a longtime producer who collaborated closely with Sullivan. He possessed an almost obsessive need to safeguard his viewers from anything he deemed improper or damaging. This went beyond editing lyrics or choreography. It concerned the integrity of the artists themselves. In confidential discussions with trusted colleagues and in private memos uncovered years after his passing, Sullivan voiced serious worries about specific musicians whose abilities he respected, but whose private actions he considered upsetting or even hazardous. These were not merely stars with poor attitudes or difficult demands. These were individuals Sullivan grew to suspect concealed real malevolence behind their public images. Tonight, we disclose the 7 music legends Sullivan secretly labeled as genuinely evil. Gifted creators whose musical achievements are indisputable, yet whose private behavior spanned from disturbing to illegal, from manipulative to brutal. These are not simply stories of rock and roll indulgence, but alarming patterns that Sullivan detected early and attempted, in his own manner, to protect his audience from. We start with arguably the most startling example, a pioneer of rock and roll whose brilliance was equaled only by the outrage that briefly ruined his career and the troubling claims that shadowed him for decades. The keyboard virtuoso who wed his 13-year-old cousin. When Sullivan learned the facts about Jerry Lee Lewis, he did not merely drop his upcoming booking, he barred him permanently. And that was prior to the suspicious deaths that followed. From Faraday, Louisiana, Jerry Lee Lewis. Number 1, Jerry Lee Lewis, the killer's deepest shadow. When Jerry Lee Lewis appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show in 1957, he personified rock and roll's wild intensity. His aggressive piano playing, frenzied stage manner, and hits like Whole Lotta Shakin' Goin' On and Great Balls of Fire earned him the nickname The Killer and placed him as a serious contender against Elvis Presley for rock's top spot. Less than a year later, Lewis's rapid ascent collapsed when the British media uncovered the shocking reality during his UK tour. The 22-year-old had married his 13-year-old cousin Myra Gale Brown. To worsen matters, Lewis had falsely stated her age as 15, still outrageously young, but less clearly unlawful. Sullivan was enraged. He never asked him back, confirmed a booking agent from that era. Ed had given Lewis his personal seal of approval by highlighting him. When the marriage scandal erupted, Sullivan felt personally deceived. He believed Lewis had involved him in endorsing someone who would commit an act Sullivan viewed as profoundly immoral. Lewis's American career instantly crumbled. Radio stations ceased airing his songs. Venues canceled shows. His performance fees dropped from $10,000 per night to $250. Though he later revived his career in country music, the controversy forever altered his path as a leading rock pioneer. What Sullivan could not have foreseen, but what surfaced over subsequent decades, was that the Myra Gale Brown affair was merely the start of Lewis's troubling pattern with women. His 7 marriages included claims of physical violence, and 2 wives died in circumstances that sparked suspicion. His 4th wife, Jaren Gunn Lewis, drowned in a pool shortly before their divorce finalized. His 5th wife, Shawn Michelle Stevens, died of a methadone overdose only 77 days after their marriage. Sullivan possessed an instinctive feel for artists with harmful traits, observed a television historian who examined Sullivan's career. His decision to exclude Lewis permanently stemmed not only from the scandal, but from what Sullivan saw as a core defect in character. Later events validated that intuition as Lewis's life grew marked by violence, drug abuse, and tragedy. Though Lewis remained a monumental musical force, his piano technique and unrestrained energy helped shape rock and roll. Sullivan's early detection of his disturbing private conduct marked one of the host's strongest moral positions against a major star. James Brown captivated viewers with his explosive shows, yet backstage Sullivan encountered a very different person. "That man has a devil inside him," Sullivan reportedly told his producer. The godfather of soul's lengthy record of violence would confirm Sullivan's view. We are delighted to present James Brown on our stage tonight. Let's give a warm welcome to a truly outstanding talent. Number 2. James Brown, the Godfather's shadowed empire. James Brown transformed American music through his vibrant performances, groundbreaking funk style, and relentless discipline. On The Ed Sullivan Show, his thrilling presence and precisely rehearsed band produced shows so commanding that Sullivan, rarely lavish with compliments, dubbed him the hardest-working man in show business, a title that endured. Beneath the glittering outfits and dramatic cape routines, however, existed a man whose offstage actions displayed a troubling pattern of violence, domination, and lawbreaking that Sullivan reportedly found deeply unsettling. He made audiences scream and women tremble, recalled a former colleague present backstage during several Brown appearances. Ed came from traditional entertainment values. He expected stars to be appreciative, modest, and courteous. Brown was none of those. He insisted on total authority, treated his musicians like subordinates, and displayed an arrogance Sullivan found alarming. Brown's criminal record began before stardom and persisted throughout his career. Multiple arrests for domestic assault against various partners, weapons offenses, and drug charges. His explosive temper and domineering conduct became infamous, with band members facing steep fines for small mistakes like dirty shoes or missteps. Sullivan reportedly remarked that Brown carried a devil's energy, according to a production assistant who overheard him speaking with his producer. He greatly admired Brown's talent, but was troubled by reports of his treatment of women and musicians, something beyond ordinary celebrity behavior. Especially disturbing were the repeated domestic abuse allegations. Several partners described severe beatings. His third wife, Adrienne Lois Rodriguez, filed divorce papers and assault charges multiple times, reconciled, then died in 1996 under somewhat unclear circumstances after surgery. Although Sullivan kept booking Brown because of his immense talent and popularity, staff noted that Sullivan stayed professionally distant, unlike his friendly bonds with other frequent guests. Sullivan faced a difficult choice with Brown, explained a music historian. He could not overlook Brown's cultural significance and genius, yet he felt profound unease about parts of his character. This produced an odd contrast, glowing on-air praise alongside private doubts. Brown's musical heritage remains unshakable. His innovations influenced funk, soul, disco, and hip-hop through heavy sampling. Yet Sullivan's early perception of his troubling traits proved accurate as charges and allegations mounted over the years. Chuck Berry invented rock and roll as we know it, and compiled a criminal history so alarming that Sullivan swore never to book him again. A single appearance convinced Sullivan of what Berry's devoted fans could not see. Number 3. Chuck Berry, rock's pioneer with a prison past. When Chuck Berry performed Maybelline on The Ed Sullivan Show in 1955, he introduced America to a sound that would define rock and roll for decades. His signature guitar riffs, engaging presence, and vivid teenage life lyrics revolutionized pop music and inspired everyone from the Beatles to the Rolling Stones. Sullivan first welcomed Berry as a thrilling new act, but their connection reportedly deteriorated as Berry's criminal background and continuing legal problems became harder to overlook. Sullivan booked him once and regretted it forever, stated a staff writer from that time. Barry shone on camera, but Sullivan was appalled upon learning more about his past and current troubles. It posed a genuine dilemma for Ed, who believed in redemption but also felt duty-bound toward the families watching at home. Barry's difficulties started pre-fame with a 1944 armed robbery conviction that landed him in reformatory until age 21. His gravest offense came in 1959, arrest under the Mann Act for transporting a 14-year-old girl across state lines for immoral purposes. She had worked at his club. He allegedly took her to St. Louis for his venue. Barry was convicted and served 20 months. This happened at Barry's commercial peak, creating a major issue for Sullivan, who insisted on moral standards for his guests. Though Barry resumed performing after release, his tie to Sullivan's show was irreparably broken. Chuck Berry was a musical genius, but Sullivan could not reconcile that with his criminal acts, noted a cultural historian of early rock TV. Sullivan tolerated some missteps, but offenses involving minors crossed an unforgivable boundary, regardless of talent. Barry's legal woes persisted. Tax evasion and, most disturbingly, a 1990 lawsuit from women claiming hidden bathroom cameras at his restaurant, yettled reportedly for $1.2 million. Barry's case is complex. His groundbreaking guitar work and classics like Johnny B. Good, Roll Over Beethoven, and rock and roll music literally defined the genre. Sullivan was torn, acknowledging revolutionary artistry while deeply disturbed by personal actions, said the historian. It foreshadowed ongoing debates over separating art from artist. Sullivan famously censored Elvis's hips on air. The true cause was not the dancing, but what Sullivan termed a troubling pattern with young female fans that raised serious concerns about the King's private desires. Number 4. Elvis Presley. The King's troubling court. Elvis Presley's 1956-1957 Ed Sullivan appearances rank among television's most iconic moments, shows so powerful they reshaped American culture overnight. Sullivan initially declined to book Presley over his suggestive style, only agreeing after rival shows drew huge ratings. The famous waist-up-only filming of his last visit symbolized the clash between youthful rock culture and traditional gatekeepers. Sullivan observed the adoration and worried about the man inspiring it, recalled a former staffer. Most people miss that Sullivan's worries went beyond hip movements. Ed was truly uneasy about the near-religious fervor Elvis sparked in youth, especially girls. He sensed something unhealthy, possibly exploitative. Sullivan's discomfort with Presley's influence marks one of his more debated opinions. Unlike others here, Elvis had no criminal record or proven abuse. Yet later accounts of his relationships have prompted scrutiny. Most notably, Priscilla Beaulieu began dating Elvis at 14 while he was 24. They married when she was 21, but Priscilla later described controlling behavior, Elvis dictating her look and activities. Biographers also note his apparent preference for very young, inexperienced women he could shape. Sullivan lacked specific private details but intuited something troubling in Elvis's dynamic with teenage fans, explained a cultural historian. It was not mere rock and roll panic, it concerned power imbalance between an adult star and idolizing adolescent girls. Sullivan's view of Elvis evolved. After initial resistance and censorship, he publicly praised him as a real decent, fine boy. This followed image-softening efforts by manager Colonel Tom Parker. Still, staff say Sullivan retained private doubts about Elvis's effect on youth. Elvis remains a nuanced case, noted the historian. No clear crimes or proven abuse, yet Sullivan's questions about adult male stars and young female fans echo issues the industry still faces. While audiences loved Phil Spector's Wall of Sound, Sullivan warned staff, "Keep that man off my show." Decades before Spector killed an actress in his home, Sullivan had already pegged him as truly dangerous. Number 5. Phil Spector. Genius and madness in sound. Phil Spector never performed on The Ed Sullivan Show, but his production influence dominated the 1960s. Inventor of the wall of sound and hitmaker for the Ronettes, Crystals, and Righteous Brothers, he transformed pop recording. Behind the brilliance lay increasingly alarming behavior that ended in murder, an outcome Sullivan reportedly foresaw long before. He crafted sound and destroyed lives, observed a music veteran who knew both men. Sullivan refused Spector as a guest despite his power. He insisted something was profoundly wrong with Spector, beyond ordinary ego. Sullivan's alarm arose from reports of Spector's studio domination and disturbing treatment of artists, especially women. Ronnie Spector later revealed her husband virtually imprisoned her, threatening murder if she left. Sullivan loathed his arrogance and avoided spotlighting him personally, said a booking agent. Produced acts appeared, but Sullivan withheld direct credit or attention, not jealousy, but genuine belief in Spector's danger. Sullivan's judgment proved eerily accurate. Spector's erratic threats escalated, guns drawn on Lennon, Cohen, the Ramones. It culminated in the 2003 shooting of actress Lana Clarkson at his mansion. He was convicted of second-degree murder, sentenced to 19 to life, and died in prison in 2021. Sullivan displayed an almost uncanny knack for detecting true darkness, noted a television historian. His Spector concerns went deeper than personality clashes. He recognized fundamental disturbance long before the world could no longer deny it. The Spector story offers the starkest confirmation of Sullivan's character insights. The genius behind joyful pop ultimately proved capable of ultimate violence, just as Sullivan seemingly feared. Ike and Tina Turner electrified the stage, but Sullivan noticed something chilling: how Ike monitored Tina's every move. Behind flawless choreography, Sullivan spotted abuse signs years before Tina's escape hit headlines. Number 6. Ike Turner, architect of musical and personal terror. Ike and Tina Turner delivered explosive energy on The Ed Sullivan Show. Their cover of Proud Mary remains one of the program's most thrilling moments, proving their status as a premier live act. Behind the synchronized spectacle lay one of music's worst abuse cases, a reality Sullivan reportedly detected early and found deeply troubling. On stage it was electric, off stage it was hell, recalled a stage manager from multiple appearances. Sullivan saw through facades. He noticed Ike's total control over band, finances, and especially Tina. Ike's constant surveillance raised red flags immediately. Staff say Sullivan formed a warm bond with Tina while keeping marked distance from Ike, rooted in backstage observations and industry reports of Ike's treatment. Ed adored Tina but was repulsed by Ike's violent, cocaine-driven rages and control, revealed a production assistant. Sullivan deliberately praised Tina directly, bypassing Ike, a bold move given Ike's dominance. What Sullivan sensed became public when Tina fled in 1976 and detailed the nightmare in her book I, Tina, and the film What's Love Got to Do with It? Years of brutal beatings, performing injured, living in fear. Sullivan booked them early but maintained distance from Ike, explained a music historian. Not mere dislike, but moral condemnation. He viewed Ike's actions as crossing into true evil. Ike's musical legacy is notable. Many credit his 1951 Rocket 88 as rock's first record. His tight arrangements influenced many. Yet documented abuse overshadows everything. Sullivan's handling of Ike and Tina illustrates his complicated moral choices, noted a television historian. He kept featuring them for talent and Tina's magnetism, but signaled disapproval of Ike in ways insiders understood. One word, one broken pledge. The night Jim Morrison openly defied Sullivan live on air did not just earn a ban, it validated Sullivan's fear that Morrison's self-destruction would ultimately consume him. Number 7. Jim Morrison, the poet who defied America's host. The Doors' 1967 Ed Sullivan Show appearance was meant to crown their rise. Instead, it became infamous and earned a permanent ban from television's top music platform. The issue was, Light My Fire and The Lying Girl, we couldn't get much higher. Worried about drug implications on a family show, Sullivan asked Morrison to sing Girl, we couldn't get much better. Morrison agreed backstage, but on air sang the original, staring into the camera on higher. It was deliberate rebellion that Sullivan saw as personal betrayal, not just discourtesy. One lyric, one defiance, lifetime blackout, summed up a producer who saw the fallout. Sullivan was furious, refused handshakes, told their manager, "You will never do the Sullivan Show again." They never did. Unlike some disputes rooted in off-camera conduct, this clash unfolded publicly, a direct challenge to Sullivan's authority. Sullivan banned the Doors forever, called Morrison a walking ego trip on acid, recalled a booking agent. It was not merely the word. Sullivan believed Morrison looked him in the eye, promised, then deliberately broke it on live TV to humiliate him. A character flaw. Morrison's unpredictability was growing. Heavy drinking, erratic behavior, volatile shows. Soon came the controversial Miami exposure arrest. Sullivan's view went beyond the incident, explained a cultural historian. He told staff Morrison carried something destructive deeper than typical rock rebellion. He sensed a darker force. Tragically accurate, Morrison's spiral worsened, ending in his 1971 death in Paris at 27. The Doors episode shows Sullivan's judgment sometimes rested on revealed character in professional moments. Morrison's broken word convinced Sullivan of profound moral failure warranting permanent exclusion. The Sullivan Standard. What his judgments reveal. Ed Sullivan's private opinions of these 7 legends illuminate both the man and his time. In an era without today's scattered media, Sullivan acted as America's chief cultural gatekeeper for nearly 2 decades, deciding who gained access to millions of homes each Sunday. His choices never hinged solely on talent. He often showcased modest performers with strong reputations while limiting or banning innovative ones whose conduct he found troubling. This was not random moralism, but reflected Sullivan's conviction that cultural power carried duty, especially toward youth. Sullivan felt he had a pact with American families, explained a television historian. He believed viewers trusted him to invite only entertainers who, despite style, showed basic human decency. Breaches felt personal, a betrayal of that trust. Strikingly, his instincts often proved prescient. Early worries about Spectre, Lewis Turner spotted patterns later undeniable. Some might call it conservative bias against rock rebellion, yet Sullivan gladly featured many rock acts who met his professionalism standard. His era featured a different media celebrity morality link. Without instant exposure via social media and with studio PR controlling images, Sullivan's backstage access offered insights the public lacked. Sullivan was not infallible. Some standards now seem dated, noted a cultural critic. But he took his platform's responsibility seriously when TV hugely shaped culture, not just guarding reputation, but considering societal impact. Time has complicated these figures' legacies. Their artistic gifts are unquestionable. Sounds, styles, songs that molded popular music. Yet their conduct, from disturbing to criminal, forces ongoing questions about art versus artist and honoring flawed icons. Sullivan never fully resolved this conflict, booking some despite reservations, banning others outright. These inconsistencies were not hypocrisy, but the difficult moral balancing of his role as America's leading cultural curator. In today's algorithm-driven, fragmented world, Sullivan's position feels almost impossible, concluded the historian. One man weekly deciding national exposure based on talent and character. His calls, right or wrong, compel us to confront still relevant issues. What duties do platforms owe regarding promoted artists? How do we balance brilliance against misconduct? Ultimately, how much should character weigh in judging cultural figures? Thank you for joining this examination of Ed Sullivan's private views on music's most controversial legends. If you found this look into television's golden age insightful, please like and subscribe for more explorations of entertainment history's hidden stories. Next week, we'll reveal the beloved 1960s family sitcoms that hid dark truths behind their perfect on-screen lives.